Hi, I hope like me you are enjoying a little bit more freedom as they've now released some of the little restrictions that we've been undertaking, some of the more onerous restrictions, and we're able to get out there a little bit more and travel a little bit further from home and still follow all the precautions like proper social distancing and washing our hands and trying to stay safe. But because of all the activity of everybody and all of the hard work of people of doing the right thing for so many weeks, we're now able to, because of the lower numbers, get a little bit more freedom back to kind of interact and be out in a bit more in small groups. But I suppose a massive global effort is still underway to develop a safe and effective vaccine for COVID-19 so that we can see the end of this pandemic for good. And although vaccine development is usually measured in decades, there is a lot of optimism and a lot of effort to make that a much shorter time frame, and they're talking initially 18 months, and even some people are talking more optimistically of less than a year. And so if they're trying to develop a vaccine, what they're trying to do is provide something into the human body that's going to create an immune response. And then therefore, if somebody is encountering the coronavirus vaccine or COVID-19, their immune system will recognize it and eliminate it from the body without it causing any disease. And there are a variety of different tests and trials that are already underway all over the world. And they're using lots of different approaches to try and create the vaccine, but every single one of them is focused on something we talked about in an earlier video, and that is that this particular coronavirus is characterized by these spike proteins which are present on the surface of the virus. And this spike protein is actually what gets it to bind on specifically to the lung cells. And so all of the different companies and groups that are looking to create a vaccine are looking to create a vaccine which develops and cultivates in the human body an immune response to this very specific protein. So they're all using different ways to present this kind of spike protein to our current immune system, have the immune system then develop a response to it, and then in the future, if it sees COVID-19, it'll be able to go after that and attack it. Now, that's the approach they're using to create the vaccine. And once they have something they think is going to be useful and effective, then it has to go through testing. And that testing happens to be in the form of clinical trials. And this is very similar to what happens when we have researchers who are developing new treatments and new interventions for cancer treatments, because you'll do a lot of work in a laboratory setting first, you'll work in cells first, then you might move up to small animal models. And after all of that testing, only then do you move into patient clinical trials. And those clinical trials take place in a series of phases. And phase 1, which has a small amount of people involved and happens in a short enough time frame, is really to establish if the vaccine or the drug or the intervention, is it safe? That's the number one thing. What are the safe doses you can use? Are there any serious side effects? Is it possible to move to the next phase because it can be tolerated by people in a safe way? And then we can go on to the next phase, which is phase 2 clinical trial. And if you get to phase 2 in a clinical trial, what you're trying to establish here is the treatment, the vaccine or the intervention effective? So you've already determined it's fairly safe. Now you want to see if it's more safe, but does it do what it's supposed to do? You record the positive and the negative effects. You usually have larger numbers, and that can take often 1 to 2 years, although the efforts at the moment for COVID-19 is to try and shorten that time frame dramatically. And then the last phase is phase 3. How does it compare? So you have much larger numbers, and then you are looking to compare your vaccine or your drug or your treatment with either no treatment or another conventional treatment that you're comparing it to. Is it better than that? How does it compare with other treatments that are available that you're trying to treat your patient with? And what you'll find is that the people who are enrolled in a phase 3 study will either be given something that has no effect, which is blank basically, or it'll be given the actual active drug or the active vaccine. And what you will find is that the participants and the people administering it do not know which people get which, and it's a randomized controlled trial. And the reason they do that is to eliminate people feeling like there's a placebo effect. I got something, therefore I feel better. And so what they do is they don't tell who got the active ingredient and who got the non-active ingredient. So the results are completely unbiased then, and there's no effect from people assuming that they've had something rather than they really did. And so that's the last phase, much larger numbers, and goes on over a longer period of time. And so these are all the steps that something is going to have to go through if you're going to develop a vaccine, or in our case also a new treatment or a new drug or a new approach for something to treat cancer. And it can seem very long, and often it's very frustrating, because if you have something that you feel is going to be beneficial, you want to get it out there as quickly as possible. You want the patients to benefit from it as soon as they possibly can. But you can't compromise safety, and you can't take shortcuts, because otherwise catastrophic things can happen. And so it's very optimistic time. There's a massive global effort underway. There's a lot of trials that are already in phase 2. So we're very hopeful to see what's coming down the track. And next week, we're actually going to do an interview with the chairman of our scientific advisory board. And he is an expert in the areas of trials and has a lot of information about this. So he's going to talk us through a little bit more about what he knows that's happening in the world, and that'll go into it in a little bit more depth. So for now, there's reasons for optimism. There's vaccines being developed. There's a lot of effort everywhere happening. There's a lot of funding being put into it. And we know that researchers and healthcare professionals are brilliant, and they will solve problems. We know it from our own cancer work, but we also know it in this case. So what we need to do, I suppose, as a population in the medium term, while we're waiting for this, is to not make mistakes, not go mad on ourselves, and still toe the line of the social distancing, follow the recommendations, washing your hands, and taking all the precautions that we're being asked to, so that we can avoid having another uptick or more spread of the virus while we're waiting for other things like the vaccines to come through. So lots of reasons for optimism, lots of reasons to be feeling better than we did maybe 2 to 3, 4 weeks ago, when it all looked a little bit more bleak. Things are going in the right direction. We've a long way to go yet, but we'll definitely do it if we keep working together. Thank you.